The CEO's wife fell in love with her bodyguard, but the night she finally gathered the courage to tell him, she discovered a secret he had been hiding for years. A secret so deeply connected to her own past that it made her question whether their entire relationship had been built on fate, forgiveness, or a devastating lie. Sophia Bennett, the elegant wife of billionaire CEO Ethan Bennett, seemed to have everything money could buy: wealth, status, luxury, and a life envied by millions. But behind the doors of their oceanfront mansion, she lived with a loneliness she could never explain. Her powerful husband controlled every part of her world, but never truly saw her. Then there was Ryan Carter, her bodyguard, the quiet man who stood a few steps behind her at every event. The man who remembered the little things nobody else noticed. The man who seemed to understand her pain before she ever spoke a word. The man she never expected to fall in love with. But while Sophia believed their connection was growing naturally, Ryan was carrying a secret that existed long before he became her bodyguard. A secret he had protected for years. A secret hidden behind every glance, every act of protection, every moment he pulled away when they got too close. And when the truth finally surfaced, it threatened not only Sophia's marriage, but everything she believed about her past, her family, and the man who had quietly guarded her heart. Why had the bodyguard been watching her long before he ever worked for her? What was the secret he had kept for years? And when the CEO's wife finally learned the truth about the bodyguard she loved, would it bring them together or destroy them both forever? The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly beyond the glass walls of the Bennett estate, reflecting the golden colors of dawn. The mansion itself sat atop a private cliff in Malibu, a $70 million masterpiece of steel, marble, and glass. To the outside world, it represented success. To Sophia Bennett, it often felt like a beautiful prison. She stood alone in the dining room, overlooking the water. The table could seat 20 people. Only 2 chairs were occupied. One by Sophia, the other by her husband. Ethan Bennett was worth nearly $8 billion. Business magazines called him a visionary. Investors called him a genius. Competitors called him ruthless. Sophia simply called him distant. Ethan's attention remained fixed on the tablet in his hands. Without looking up, he said, "The Anderson Foundation Gala starts at 7. The jet leaves at 4. Sophia stirred her coffee. "I was planning to meet with an architecture firm today." Ethan continued scrolling. "Reschedule it." The answer came so quickly, it sounded rehearsed. A small silence settled between them. Sophia stared at him. 7 years ago, she would have challenged him. 7 years ago, she had been Sophia Ashford, a passionate architect determined to build her own company. She had met Ethan at a charity fundraiser in Chicago where he had seemed charming, attentive, and fascinated by her dreams. A brief flash of memory crossed her mind. A rooftop restaurant. City lights. Ethan smiling. "You'll never have to choose between me and your ambitions." Back then, she had believed every word. Now she wondered when those promises had quietly disappeared. Control had never arrived suddenly. It came disguised as protection. First, Ethan suggested she work less because she seemed stressed. Then he encouraged her to let his team handle finances. Then he persuaded her to step back from projects that required travel. By the time she realized what was happening, most of her dreams had been placed on shelves she no longer reached for. The sound of tires crunching across the driveway interrupted her thoughts. Sophia glanced through the glass. A black armored SUV approached the entrance. For reasons she couldn't explain, her heartbeat changed slightly. Ryan Carter had arrived. The vehicle stopped. The driver's door opened. Ryan stepped out. Tall, calm, precise. Every movement carried the discipline of someone who had spent years in dangerous places. His dark suit concealed the strength of a former military operative. Few people knew the details of his past, Ethan had hired him 3 years earlier after receiving repeated threats from rivals and anonymous sources. Ryan rarely spoke unless necessary. Yet somehow he understood people better than those who talked constantly. As he scanned the property, his eyes briefly lifted toward the dining room. Toward Sophia. For a fraction of a second, something flickered across his face. Not surprise. Not attraction. Recognition. As if he were looking at someone connected to a memory he could never escape. Then it vanished. Outside, Ryan adjusted his watch. A simple movement. Yet hidden beneath his sleeve was an old scar running across his wrist. A scar tied to a tragedy 15 years earlier. A tragedy no one in this house knew about. Or so he believed. Inside the mansion, Sophia looked away from the window. She had no idea that the quiet bodyguard protecting her every day had been carrying the weight of her past for years. And she certainly had no idea that the secrets buried between them were already beginning to wake. The following evening, the Bennett family's private jet descended toward San Francisco. Sophia sat beside the window, watching the city lights emerge beneath the clouds. Across from her, Ethan was on his third business call in less than an hour. Move the meeting to Tuesday. A pause. No, I don't care what they promised. Another pause. Make it happen. The call ended. Almost immediately, another began. Sophia turned back toward the window. Years ago, she used to admire Ethan's ambition. Now she often felt invisible beside it. A few seats behind them sat Ryan. Alert. Silent. Observing everything. Most people assumed bodyguards simply watched for physical threats. Ryan knew better. The greatest dangers often arrived wearing expensive suits and friendly smiles. As the plane landed, a memory surfaced uninvited. 3 years earlier, the day he first met Sophia. Ethan had introduced her casually. My wife. Just 2 words. Yet Ryan remembered noticing the sadness hidden behind her smile. Most people missed it. He hadn't. Because he had spent years studying her face in newspaper articles, charity magazines, and public interviews. Years watching from a distance. Years carrying a secret he could never reveal. The memory disappeared as the jet touched down. The gala occupied an entire luxury hotel overlooking the bay. Crystal chandeliers illuminated hundreds of wealthy guests. Billionaires. Politicians. Celebrities. People who shaped industries and influenced governments. Sophia moved gracefully through the crowd. Everyone knew her name. Few truly knew her. As she greeted donors, Ryan remained several steps behind. Close enough to protect. Far enough to remain unnoticed. Then something unexpected happened. An elderly woman approached Sophia. Oh my goodness, she said warmly. You're still supporting children's architecture programs. Sophia smiled. Of course. The woman laughed. Just like when you were 17. Sophia froze slightly. 17. For some reason, that age always made her uncomfortable. A strange feeling settled in her chest. Not fear. Not sadness. Something she could never fully explain. The woman moved on. Sophia barely noticed. Because across the room, Ryan had gone completely still. His eyes remained fixed on her. Noticing. Remembering. The reaction lasted less than a second. But it was there. And for the first time, Sophia caught it. Why would the mention of her teenage years affect him? The question lingered. Hours later, the gala ended. Guests began leaving. Sophia stepped outside onto a quiet terrace overlooking the water. The cool air felt refreshing after hours of forced smiles. Behind her, footsteps approached. She didn't need to turn around. Ryan. Ma'am. You know, she said softly, you don't have to call me ma'am every time. A faint smile appeared on his face. Occupational habit. Sophia laughed. The sound surprised even her. She realized she hadn't laughed like that around Ethan in a very long time. For a brief moment, neither spoke. The city lights shimmered across the bay below. Then Sophia noticed something. Ryan was staring at the water. Not casually. Intensely. As though it reminded him of something painful. A flash of memory cut through his mind. A hospital hallway. A teenage boy sitting alone. A doctor shaking his head. A younger girl who would never come home. The image vanished instantly. But the pain remained. Sophia noticed his expression change. What happened? Ryan blinked. What do you mean? Just now. He looked away. Nothing. It was a lie. And both of them knew it. Yet Sophia didn't push further. Not tonight. Inside the hotel ballroom, Ethan watched them through a glass wall. His expression darkened. Only slightly. But enough. For months, he had noticed small things. The way Sophia seemed more relaxed when Ryan was nearby. The way Ryan paid attention when she spoke. The way silence between them felt comfortable. Dangerously comfortable. Ethan didn't believe in coincidences. And neither did Ryan. Because at that exact moment, hidden inside his hotel room upstairs was an old photograph he had carried for years. A photograph containing a teenage Sophia. A photograph no bodyguard should possess. And if she ever saw it, everything would begin to unravel. The flight back to Malibu was unusually quiet. Ethan spent most of the journey reviewing reports on his tablet. Sophia stared out the window, but her thoughts remained trapped on the hotel terrace. On Ryan. More specifically, on the expression that had crossed his face when the elderly woman mentioned her teenage years. It had not been the look of a stranger. It had been the look of someone remembering something. Or someone. The feeling followed her for days. By Thursday morning, the Bennett estate had returned to its usual rhythm. Assistants moved through the mansion carrying schedules and documents. Gardeners maintained the sprawling grounds. Luxury cars arrived and departed through the gates. Everything looked perfect. Everything looked controlled. Sophia stood in the library reviewing plans for a community center she had been secretly sketching during her spare time. Architecture still lived inside her. It was one of the few pieces of herself she hadn't completely lost. A flashback surfaced. Years earlier. 26-year-old Sophia presenting her first major design proposal to investors. Confident. Passionate. Fearless. Back then, she believed her future would be built by her own hands. Not managed by someone else's. The memory faded when Ethan entered the room. He glanced at the blueprints. What are those? A community center concept. Ethan barely looked. You don't need another project. Sophia stiffened. I wasn't asking permission. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Ethan smiled. The same charming smile that had once made her fall in love. Except now, she recognized something underneath it. Control. Of course not, he said. But his tone suggested otherwise. After he left, Sophia released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The interaction seemed small. Yet it left her exhausted. As if every conversation with her husband required invisible armor. Later that afternoon, a security alert sounded near the west gate. Nothing serious. A delivery truck had triggered a false alarm. Still, protocol required Ryan to inspect the area. While checking surveillance equipment in the security office, he received an urgent call from another team member and stepped away for only a few minutes. For the first time in months, he left his office unlocked. Sophia arrived moments later. She wasn't looking for Ryan. She was looking for a misplaced package that staff believed had been delivered there by mistake. The office was neat. Organized. Almost sterile. Everything exactly where it belonged. Then her attention caught something unusual. A photograph, partially sticking out from a folder. Curious, she stepped closer. Her breath stopped. The image showed a teenage girl standing outside a charity fundraiser. The girl was younger. 17, perhaps. But unmistakably her. Sophia. Her fingers trembled. Why would Ryan have this? The photograph looked old. Very old. Not something downloaded from the internet. Not something collected after he became her bodyguard. This picture existed years before then. A chill crawled down her spine. Before she could examine it further, footsteps approached. She quickly returned the photograph to the folder. Ryan entered. The moment he saw her standing near the desk, something changed in his expression. Not panic. Something deeper. Fear. A fear Sophia had never seen before. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then she asked quietly, "How long have you known me?" Ryan's heartbeat pounded. The question he had dreaded for years had finally arrived. He chose his words carefully. "I know you because it's my job." Sophia held his gaze. "No." She shook her head. "That's not what I asked." The room felt suddenly smaller. Ryan knew this moment would come eventually. He just hadn't expected it today. Outside the office window, the ocean waves crashed against the cliffs. Inside, old secrets shifted beneath the surface. And for the first time in years, Ryan realized the truth might be getting closer than he could stop. Meanwhile, several miles away in downtown Los Angeles, Ethan sat in a private conference room reviewing financial records. One document caught his attention. A report showing that someone had recently been accessing archived files connected to a 15-year-old incident. An incident that should have remained buried forever. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Because there were only 3 people left who knew the full truth. And if one of them had started digging again, everything he had spent years protecting could collapse. The past was moving. And none of them were prepared for what would happen when it finally caught up to them. Barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the photograph. A teenage version of herself. A picture that should have meant nothing to Ryan Carter. Yet somehow it had frightened him. By sunrise, one question consumed her mind. Who was Ryan before he became her bodyguard? And why had he been carrying a piece of her past? The following morning, the mansion buzzed with its usual activity. Housekeepers moved through marble hallways. Assistants coordinated schedules. Security personnel rotated shifts across the sprawling estate. To everyone else, it was another ordinary day inside the world of the Bennetts. To Sophia, nothing felt ordinary anymore. She sat in her private study, staring at her laptop. After several minutes of hesitation, she finally typed Ryan Carter's name into a search engine. Thousands of results appeared. Military commendations. Private security contracts. Industry awards. Nothing unusual. Nothing personal. Almost as if someone had deliberately erased every trace of the man behind the resume. The realization unsettled her. Most people left footprints. Ryan left shadows. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the estate, Ryan stood in the security command center monitoring camera feeds. He knew Sophia was searching. He had anticipated this day for years. The photograph had been a mistake. His first real mistake. A memory surfaced. 15 years earlier. A cramped apartment in Chicago. A 16-year-old Ryan helping his younger sister, Emma, finish her homework at the kitchen table. Their mother had died 2 years before. Their father had disappeared even earlier. The apartment was small. Money was scarce. But Emma's laughter always made the place feel warm. "You worry too much," she had teased. Ryan smiled at the memory. Then the smile disappeared. Because every happy memory of Emma ended the same way. With loss. The flashback faded before revealing more. Just enough to create questions. Just enough to hurt. Back inside the mansion, Sophia made a decision. She called her longtime friend, Claire Monroe. Unlike most people in her social circle, Claire had known Sophia before the wealth, before Ethan, before magazine covers. Claire answered immediately. "You sound serious. I need help looking into someone." "Who?" Sophia hesitated, then quietly said, "My bodyguard." A long silence followed. Claire laughed. "That sounds like the beginning of a terrible idea." Sophia almost laughed too. Almost. But the photograph wasn't funny. Neither was the feeling growing inside her. Something was wrong. She could feel it. Hours later, another problem emerged. Ethan returned home earlier than expected. The moment he entered the mansion, staff members became noticeably more careful. More formal. More alert. Sophia noticed it immediately. And for the first time, she wondered why she had never paid attention before. Control changed people. Not only those beneath it, but everyone around it. At dinner, Ethan appeared unusually interested in her day. "What have you been working on lately?" The question sounded innocent. Yet something beneath it felt calculated. Sophia answered carefully. "Nothing special." Ethan nodded. Too quickly. As though testing something. Watching something. Then his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. For a fraction of a second, his expression hardened. A name appeared before he locked the display. Daniel Ashford. Sophia's older brother. The sight triggered an unexpected chill. She hadn't spoken to Daniel in months. Their relationship had always been complicated. As children, Daniel had been reckless while Sophia followed rules. Their father had always protected him. Excused him. Favored him. Even when he made mistakes. Especially when he made mistakes. A strange flash of memory surfaced. 17-year-old Sophia, sitting in the passenger seat of a car. Daniel laughing. Music playing loudly. Headlights flashing. Then, nothing. The memory vanished before she could grasp it, leaving behind only a familiar sense of dread. Across the table, Ethan was watching her. "Everything okay?" Sophia blinked. Yes, but she wasn't sure. Because lately, fragments of forgotten memories had begun appearing without warning. And deep inside, she sensed they were connected. Connected to Ryan. Connected to Daniel. Connected to something buried years ago. Later that evening, Ryan completed his final security sweep. As he walked past a guest hallway, he overheard Ethan speaking quietly on the phone. Most of the conversation was inaudible. Except for one sentence. "She can't start remembering." Ryan froze. The words hit him like a punch. Then Ethan continued walking. The call ended, and silence returned. But Ryan's pulse remained elevated. Because those 4 words confirmed something he had feared for years. The past wasn't simply resurfacing on its own. Someone was actively trying to keep it buried. And whatever truth Sophia was beginning to remember, Ethan already knew exactly what it was. The sentence refused to leave Ryan's mind. "She can't start remembering." For 2 days, those words echoed through every security patrol, every surveillance review, every sleepless hour. Because Ethan Bennett was not a man who spoke carelessly. If Ethan feared Sophia remembering something, then the truth was closer than Ryan had ever imagined. And that terrified him. Not for himself. For her. Meanwhile, Sophia sat across from Claire Monroe in a quiet cafe overlooking Santa Monica Beach. The location was deliberate. Away from the mansion. Away from Ethan's employees. Away from anyone who might report back to him. Claire listened carefully as Sophia explained everything. The photograph, Ryan's reaction, the strange feeling that she had seen him before. When she finished, Claire leaned back. "You're telling me your bodyguard has an old photograph of you from your teenage years?" "Yes. And you're certain?" "I know what I saw." Claire frowned. "Then you need answers." Sophia hesitated. "I was thinking the same thing." A few minutes later, Claire slid a business card across the table. The card belonged to Michael Reeves, a respected private investigator, former detective, discreet, reliable. Sophia stared at the card. For some reason, taking it felt like crossing a line, as though her life had quietly divided into two parts. Before the photograph, and after it. That afternoon, she made the call. Michael agreed to begin immediately. What Sophia didn't know was that someone else had noticed the meeting. A man sitting inside a parked sedan across the street lowered a pair of binoculars. Then he reached for his phone. She started asking questions. The call ended. The watcher drove away. Hours later, Ryan reviewed security footage from the previous day. Something caught his attention. An unfamiliar vehicle appearing repeatedly near locations Sophia had visited. Not once. Not twice. 5 times. A coincidence was possible. 6 times wasn't. Ryan's instincts immediately activated. Someone was conducting surveillance. The question was why. His jaw tightened. Because if someone was watching Sophia now, they were either searching for the same truth he had spent years hiding, or trying to ensure it never surfaced. That night, Ryan sat alone in his apartment overlooking downtown Los Angeles. Inside a locked drawer rested a small box. He hadn't opened it in months. Slowly, he removed the lid. Photographs, newspaper clippings, hospital documents, and one worn journal. Emma's journal. His fingers tightened around it. The sight pulled him backward through time. 15 years earlier. A summer evening in Chicago. 16-year-old Ryan rushing home after work. Emma waiting on the apartment steps. She was 14. Bright. Kind. The type of girl who saw good in everyone. "You're late," she complained playfully. Ryan laughed. "I had a double shift." Emma handed him a folded piece of paper. "What is this?" "My essay." Ryan unfolded it. The title read, "The Person I Admire Most." He already knew who it was about. Still, reading the words hit him harder than expected. You take care of everybody even when nobody takes care of you. Ryan swallowed. "You're going to make me cry." Emma grinned. "Good." The memory shifted. A week later, Emma attending a charity event with her school. Hundreds of wealthy families gathered inside a luxury hotel ballroom. Emma returned home excited. She opened her diary and wrote for nearly an hour. Ryan remembered asking what was so interesting. "You wouldn't understand." "Try me." Emma smiled. "I met a girl." Ryan immediately groaned. "A boy would have worried me less." Emma laughed. "Not like that." Then she became thoughtful. She looked lonely. "At a charity gala." "Yeah." Emma stared into space. Everybody around her seemed to want something from her. "What's her name?" Emma shrugged. "I don't know." Years later, Ryan would learn exactly who that girl was. But on that night, it seemed like a meaningless conversation. One tiny moment among thousands. A moment neither sibling could have imagined would someday shape the rest of their lives. The flashback dissolved. Ryan closed the journal. Pain settled heavily inside his chest. Because every memory eventually led to the same destination. The night Emma died. A night he still couldn't fully escape. Back at the Bennett mansion, Sophia received a call just before midnight. Michael Reeves, the private investigator. His voice sounded tense. I found something. Sophia sat upright. What? A pause. Then, Ryan Carter wasn't always Ryan Carter. Sophia's pulse quickened. What do you mean? His legal records show a name change several years ago. Silence. A chill spread through her body. His original name was Ryan Hayes. Before Sophia could ask another question, the call suddenly cut off. The line went dead. She tried calling back. No answer. Again. No answer. A third time. Still nothing. Then, several miles away, Michael Reeves stepped out of his office building and noticed two men standing beside his car. Waiting. Watching. And suddenly, discovering the truth about Ryan Carter seemed far less dangerous than discovering why someone desperately wanted that truth hidden. Sophia spent most of the night staring at her phone. No matter how many times she called Michael Reeves, the result remained the same. No answer. By sunrise, unease had evolved into fear. Something wasn't right. Private investigators did not simply disappear in the middle of a case. Especially not immediately after uncovering a major secret. The name echoed in her mind. Ryan Hayes. Not Ryan Carter. Ryan Hayes. Why would someone change their name? What was he running from? Or worse, what was he hiding? Downstairs, the mansion appeared as immaculate as ever. Staff moved through the hallways with polished efficiency. Gardeners trimmed hedges overlooking the ocean. Luxury vehicles arrived and departed through the private gates. Everything looked normal. But Sophia was beginning to realize that appearances could be manufactured. After all, her marriage had looked perfect too. Meanwhile, Ryan stood inside the security command center, reviewing overnight reports. One notification immediately caught his attention. Private investigator Michael Reeves. Vehicle located. Owner missing. Ryan's stomach tightened. He knew enough about danger to recognize patterns. And this pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Someone was cleaning up loose ends. Someone powerful. Someone desperate. His thoughts immediately shifted to Ethan. Yet Ryan knew assumptions could be fatal. Facts mattered. Evidence mattered. Still, the timing was difficult to dismiss. A man uncovers Ryan's former identity. Hours later, he vanishes. Coincidence seemed increasingly unlikely. Before Ryan could continue his analysis, another alert appeared on his monitor. A warehouse fire downtown. The address made his blood run cold. Michael Reeves's office. Ryan stared at the screen, then quietly whispered, "Damn." Across town, firefighters battled the blaze. By the time it was extinguished, nearly every document inside had been destroyed. Almost every document. Hours later, Sophia received a call from Claire. The office burned down. Sophia nearly dropped her phone. What? The news just reported it. A cold wave of dread washed over her. The investigator vanished. His office burned. And all of it happened after discovering Ryan's original identity. The logical conclusion seemed obvious. Ryan was dangerous. Yet strangely, Sophia couldn't believe it. Every instinct told her something else was happening. Something bigger. Something none of them could yet see. That evening, Ryan drove alone along the Pacific Coast Highway. The ocean stretched endlessly beside him. His thoughts drifted somewhere he had spent years trying to avoid. The night everything changed. 15 years earlier. Chicago. A warm summer evening. 16-year-old Ryan finishing a late shift. Emma had attended a school volunteer event earlier that day. She was supposed to be home by 8. By 9, she still hadn't arrived. At 9:30, his phone rang. The memory remained painfully clear. A police officer's voice. A hospital address. A request to come immediately. Ryan remembered sprinting through hospital corridors. His chest burning. His legs shaking. Praying. Begging. Refusing to imagine the worst. Then he saw her. Emma lay motionless beneath white sheets. Machines surrounded her. Doctors moved urgently around the room. Ryan rushed forward. Emma. Her eyes opened briefly. Only briefly. But enough. She looked at him. Tried to speak. Failed. Then squeezed his hand. A weak squeeze. A final squeeze. The memory shattered him every time. Ryan pulled his car onto a scenic overlook and stopped. His hands trembled against the steering wheel. Even after 15 years, the pain remained raw. Because he remembered what came next. The doctors. The silence. The realization. Emma was gone. Police eventually explained what happened. A hit and run. A speeding luxury vehicle. Driver fled the scene. No arrest. No justice. No answers. For years, that was all Ryan had known. A wealthy stranger had taken his sister's life and disappeared. The case eventually grew cold. Evidence vanished. Witnesses changed statements. Leads dried up. Yet Ryan never stopped searching. The audience still didn't know who the driver was. But clues had already begun forming. A wealthy family. A buried incident. A frightened 17-year-old Sophia. Daniel Ashford. Ethan Bennett. All roads were slowly converging toward the same destination. Back at the mansion, Sophia sat alone in her bedroom. Unable to sleep. Unable to stop thinking. She opened her laptop and searched for old records connected to Ryan Hayes. Most searches produced nothing. Then one obscure archived article appeared. A local newspaper clipping from 15 years earlier. A photograph accompanied the article. The image showed a teenage boy standing outside a hospital. His face filled with grief. Ryan. Younger. Broken. The headline beneath the image read, Family seeks justice after teen killed in hit and run. Sophia's breath caught. Her eyes moved lower. She read the victim's name. Emma Hayes. For reasons she couldn't explain, a sharp pain pierced her chest. A strange feeling. Like hearing a song she had forgotten, but somehow still remembered. Then another fragment flashed inside her mind. Headlights. Screeching tires. Daniel laughing. Her own terrified voice. And a girl lying motionless on the road. Sophia gasped and slammed the laptop shut. Her heart pounded violently. The image vanished before she could fully grasp it. But one terrifying realization remained. Somehow, Ryan's tragedy was connected to her past. And if that connection was real, then the secret he had hidden for years might be far more devastating than she ever imagined. The next morning, Sophia could no longer pretend the pieces were unrelated. Ryan Hayes. Emma Hayes. The old photograph. The vanished investigator. The strange flashes of memory she could not fully explain. Every thread seemed to be pulling toward the same hidden truth. And for the first time in years, she was afraid of her own past. The feeling followed her throughout the day. At lunch. During meetings. Even while speaking with charity board members. No matter what she was doing, fragments continued surfacing. A dark road. Music blasting through car speakers. Daniel's laughter. Then fear. Pure fear. Each memory vanished before revealing enough to make sense. But they were becoming stronger. Closer. As though a locked door inside her mind was beginning to crack. That evening, Sophia made a decision. She was done chasing clues. She wanted answers. Directly from Ryan. The sun was setting when she found him near the estate's western bluff, overlooking the ocean. The location was quiet, far from the main house, far from listening ears. Ryan stood near the cliff's edge, performing a routine perimeter inspection. He noticed her immediately. Something in her expression told him this wasn't a casual conversation. Sophia. The use of her first name surprised her. He rarely used it. Usually, only when something serious was happening. She stopped several feet away. "We need to talk." Ryan nodded slowly. "I figured." For a moment, neither spoke. The ocean crashed against the rocks below. The sound seemed louder than usual. Then Sophia looked directly into his eyes. "Who is Emma Hayes?" Ryan froze. Not visibly. Most people would never notice. But Sophia did. Because she was watching him closely. The silence that followed lasted only seconds. Yet it felt much longer. Finally, Ryan asked quietly, "How did you find that name?" Sophia's heart sank. Because he hadn't denied knowing her. "I found an article." Ryan looked toward the horizon. His jaw tightened. For years, he had imagined this conversation. Countless versions. Countless outcomes. None of them ended well. "She was my sister." The words landed heavily. Sophia swallowed. "I'm sorry." Ryan gave a faint nod. But his eyes remained distant. A flashback surfaced. 14-year-old Emma, laughing as she chased pigeons through a city park. Emma bringing home perfect grades, despite every obstacle. Emma promising that someday life would get easier. The memory disappeared, leaving behind only grief. Sophia hesitated before asking the question that truly mattered. "Is that why you became my bodyguard?" Ryan remained silent. A dangerous silence. Because the answer was yes. And no. Finally he spoke. "Not exactly." The response only deepened the mystery. Sophia stared at him. "Then explain it." Ryan exhaled slowly. The truth sat between them like a loaded weapon. He knew once certain words were spoken, nothing could ever return to normal. "You've been carrying guilt for a long time, haven't you?" Sophia's pulse quickened. "What does that mean?" Ryan didn't answer immediately. Instead, another memory surfaced. Years earlier. A 22-year-old Ryan, sitting inside a records archive. Boxes stacked around him. Documents spread across a table. For 6 years, he had searched for answers about Emma's death. Most leads ended nowhere. Then one witness statement changed everything. A witness claiming a teenage girl had been seen near the vehicle involved in the accident. A wealthy teenage girl. The name attached to the report had shaken him. Sophia Ashford. For years afterward, Ryan believed she was responsible. Believed she had taken Emma from him. Believed she had escaped justice because her family had money and influence. At first he hated her. Then he investigated further. And everything became complicated. Back in the present, Sophia noticed something changing in his eyes. Not anger. Not resentment. Sadness. A profound sadness. As though he regretted every word he was about to say. "You were connected to Emma's death." The world seemed to stop. The ocean. The wind. Everything. Sophia felt the air leave her lungs. "No." The word escaped automatically. Not because she knew it was false. Because part of her feared it was true. Ryan held her gaze. "You were there." A violent flash exploded inside her mind. Headlights. A speeding car. Daniel gripping the steering wheel. Her own terrified scream. Then impact. Sophia stumbled backward. Her legs nearly gave out. Ryan instinctively stepped forward, but stopped himself. Because this was not the moment to comfort her. This was the moment she needed the truth. Only part of it. Not all of it. Not yet. Tears filled her eyes. I don't remember. I know. The answer came immediately. Too immediately. Sophia noticed. You know. Ryan nodded. For years he had known. Known she remembered almost nothing. Known someone had buried the truth so deeply that even she could no longer see it clearly. The realization frightened her. Because it meant Ryan understood her past better than she did. And perhaps had for years. Before she could ask another question, Ryan's phone vibrated. An encrypted security alert. His expression darkened instantly. Sophia saw it. What is it? Ryan checked the message. Then looked toward the mansion. His instincts immediately screamed danger. A hidden source inside Ethan's corporate network had sent a warning. Only 3 words. They're moving evidence. Ryan's blood ran cold. Because if evidence was moving now, someone knew the truth was getting close. Someone was preparing for war. And the next revelation would change everything Sophia believed about herself. Because she had been there the night Emma died. But she had not been the one driving. Sophia barely remembered how she got back to the mansion. The drive from the bluff felt like a blur. Her hands trembled. Her thoughts raced. One sentence repeated endlessly inside her mind. You were there. Not you caused it. Not you killed her. Just 3 devastating words. You were there. The distinction should have comforted her. Instead, it terrified her. Because deep down, she had spent years running from a guilt she could never explain. Now that guilt finally had a shape. A name. Emma Hayes. That night, sleep never came. Around 2 a.m, Sophia left her bedroom and wandered through the silent mansion. The halls felt colder than usual. The house seemed less like a home and more like a museum dedicated to appearances. Every painting, every chandelier, every marble floor. Proof of Ethan's success. Yet none of it brought peace. As she passed Ethan's home office, she noticed something unusual. The door was slightly open. A faint light glowed inside. Sophia slowed. Voices drifted into the hallway. Ethan was on the phone. His tone was tense. Far more tense than she had ever heard before. No. A pause. I don't care what it costs. Another pause. Daniel has to stay quiet. Sophia froze. Daniel. Her brother. The name hit her like lightning. Inside the office, Ethan continued. If she remembers everything, we're finished. Sophia's pulse exploded. She pressed herself against the wall. Heart hammering. Every instinct told her to leave. But she couldn't move. The conversation continued. The records should have been destroyed years ago. A longer pause. Then Ethan spoke the words that shattered whatever certainty remained. The accident can never come back. Accident. Sophia's entire body went cold. A floodgate burst open inside her mind. Suddenly, the fragmented memories she'd been experiencing for weeks slammed together. Not pieces anymore. A complete memory. 15 years earlier. Chicago. A warm summer night. 17-year-old Sophia sat in the passenger seat of her father's luxury sedan. Daniel occupied the driver's seat. 18 years old. Drunk. Laughing. The smell of alcohol filled the vehicle. Slow down, Sophia shouted. Daniel ignored her. Music blasted through the speakers. The speedometer climbed higher. Sophia remembered gripping the door handle. Fear twisting inside her stomach. Then headlights flashed. A figure appeared ahead. A girl crossing the street. Everything happened at once. Sophia screamed. Daniel jerked the wheel. Too late. The impact echoed through the night. The car lurched violently. The windshield cracked. Then silence. Horrible silence. Sophia remembered opening the door, stumbling onto the pavement, seeing a girl lying motionless beneath a streetlight. Emma. Not a stranger. Not a faceless victim. A child. A real person. A real life. Sophia remembered crying, sobbing, begging Daniel to call an ambulance. Instead, Daniel grabbed her arm. "We have to go." "No. We have to go." Then came the memory Sophia had buried deepest. Their father arriving minutes later. Someone had called him. She never knew who. The powerful Richard Ashford stepping from a black sedan. Calm. Controlled. Already planning. Already calculating. He looked at Daniel. Then at Sophia. Then at the damaged vehicle. And made a decision that would poison multiple lives. "Switch seats." Sophia stared at him. "What? Now?" Daniel immediately obeyed. Sophia refused. Until her father grabbed her shoulders. "You listen to me carefully." His voice remained frighteningly calm. No one can know Daniel was driving. The memory made adult Sophia physically sick. She remembered shaking, crying, terrified. Yet she obeyed. Because she was 17. Because she trusted her father. Because she didn't understand what was happening. The memory shifted. Police arriving. Lawyers arriving. Witness statements changing. Evidence disappearing. And over time, something even worse happened. The story became distorted. Twisted. Buried. Until eventually Sophia no longer knew what was true. She spent years believing she was somehow responsible. Years carrying guilt without understanding why. Back in the present, tears streamed down her face. The full weight of the truth crashed into her. She hadn't been driving. Daniel had. Emma had died because of Daniel. And their father had protected him. A floorboard creaked. Sophia jerked backward. Inside the office, Ethan's conversation stopped. She immediately retreated down the hallway before he could discover her. Minutes later, she locked herself inside her bedroom. Her entire world had changed. But another question remained. Why was Ethan involved? How did he know about any of this? Across town, Ryan sat inside his apartment studying documents spread across a table. Evidence collected over years. Court records. Witness statements. Financial transactions. Connections. Patterns. Most importantly, one document recently recovered before Michael Reeves disappeared. Ryan stared at it. His jaw tightened. Because it finally explained Ethan's role. Years earlier, Ethan had discovered the truth about the accident. Not accidentally. Intentionally. While conducting corporate investigations involving Daniel Ashford. Instead of exposing it, Ethan had weaponized it. Used it. Leveraged it. Blackmailed Daniel. Built business partnerships through shared secrets. Then something even darker happened. Ethan met Sophia. And realized a woman carrying hidden guilt was easier to control than a woman who knew the truth. Ryan closed the file. Disgust burned inside him. For years, he had believed the tragedy began with a drunk teenager. Now he understood something worse. The accident had created victims, but the cover-up had created monsters. And soon, Sophia would learn that her husband had known the truth almost from the beginning. Maybe even before she married him. And when that revelation arrived, it would destroy everything that remained of her marriage. The sun had barely risen when Sophia made her decision. For years, other people had controlled the story of her life. Her father, Daniel, Ethan, even her own memories. No more. She was done living inside secrets. Done letting other people decide what truths she could handle. For the first time in years, she felt something stronger than fear. She felt anger. Not the explosive kind. The quiet kind. The dangerous kind. The kind that arrived after years of betrayal. By mid-morning, she called Ryan. "I need to see you." His answer came immediately. "Where?" "The old boathouse." The structure sat near the private shoreline below the estate. Ethan rarely visited it. Few staff members even used it anymore. It was private. And privacy was exactly what Sophia needed. An hour later, Ryan arrived. The moment he stepped inside, he knew something had changed. Sophia stood beside a dusty window, overlooking the ocean. Her eyes were red from crying. But there was strength in them now. A strength he hadn't seen before. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Sophia turned toward him. "I remember." Ryan froze. The words landed harder than any punch. Sophia's voice trembled. Daniel was driving. Silence. Ryan slowly lowered his gaze. Not because he was surprised. Because he had dreaded this moment for years. The moment she would finally have to carry the full weight of the truth. He killed Emma. The pain in her voice was unbearable. Ryan took a slow breath. "Yes." Tears filled Sophia's eyes again. "I'm so sorry." The apology broke something inside him. Not because he needed it. Because he could hear how genuine it was. For years, he had imagined confronting the person he believed responsible. He had imagined anger, hatred, revenge. Instead, standing before him was a woman carrying wounds of her own. A woman manipulated by people she trusted. A woman who had been living inside a prison built from lies. Ryan finally spoke. "You weren't responsible." Sophia shook her head. "I was there. You were 17. I should have stopped him. You tried." The words hit her hard. Because they were true. She remembered screaming at Daniel. Begging him to slow down. Begging him to stop. Ryan stepped closer. "Your father failed you." Sophia lowered her head. "So did my husband." Ryan's expression darkened. For years, he had kept many secrets. But there was one secret left. The biggest one. The one he had hidden longer than all the others. And now, there was no reason to hide it anymore. Sophia looked up. "What aren't you telling me?" Ryan closed his eyes briefly. A memory surfaced. 22-year-old Ryan, sitting inside a county records archive. Stacks of evidence surrounding him. Years of obsession. Years of grief. Years of searching. The moment he discovered Sophia Ashford's name attached to the accident. The rage. The heartbreak. The certainty that he had finally found Emma's killer. For nearly 2 years afterward, he investigated Sophia. Not to hurt her. To understand her. To understand how someone could continue living after destroying another person's life. Then everything changed. He found witnesses. Missing reports. Hidden statements. Evidence proving Daniel had been driving. Evidence proving Sophia had been manipulated. Evidence proving she was another victim. Back in the present, Ryan finally met her eyes. "When I first found your name." His voice was quieter now. "I thought you killed my sister." Sophia felt her stomach tighten. Ryan continued. "I spent years believing it." Every word carried the weight of truth. Then he said the sentence he had hidden for years. "I started watching you." Sophia stared at him. Confused. Heart racing. Ryan nodded slowly. "I attended charity events where you spoke." Her eyes widened. "I followed public interviews." The room felt suddenly smaller. "I read everything I could find about you." Sophia struggled to process it. Not because it sounded dangerous. Because it sounded heartbreaking. Ryan looked away. I wanted to hate you. The honesty in his voice was devastating. But every time I learned something new, the story stopped making sense. A flashback surfaced. Ryan reading interviews where Sophia discussed community projects. Watching videos where she helped underprivileged students. Studying photographs where sadness hid behind her smile. Nothing matched the monster he expected to find. Eventually, the truth emerged. Daniel had been driving, not Sophia. And once Ryan understood that, everything changed. Sophia swallowed hard. Then why didn't you tell me? Ryan looked toward the ocean. Because this answer hurt the most. At first, I didn't think you could survive the truth. A long silence followed. Then he continued. And later, he hesitated. For perhaps the first time in years. Sophia noticed. And later what? Ryan's voice dropped almost to a whisper. I cared about you. The words settled heavily between them. Neither moved. Neither looked away. Years of unspoken emotions suddenly stood exposed. No hiding. No pretending. Just truth. Ryan continued. The more I got to know you, the harder it became. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Harder to tell me. Ryan nodded. Because I knew what it would do to you. Another silence. Then Sophia asked the question she had been afraid to ask. Did you ever forgive me? Ryan stared at her. The answer came without hesitation. Years ago. The words shattered the final wall inside her. Because all this time, she had believed Ryan's secret would be hatred. Resentment. Revenge. Instead, his greatest secret was forgiveness. He had forgiven her long before she ever knew she needed it. Before either of them could speak again, a sharp voice echoed from the doorway. How touching. Both turned. Ethan stood there. His expression cold. Controlled. Dangerously calm. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Ethan slowly stepped inside. His gaze shifted between them. To Sophia. To Ryan. Back to Sophia. And for the first time, there was no mask left. No charming CEO. No loving husband. Only a man whose secrets were collapsing. A man who knew the truth had finally caught up with him. And Sophia realized the most difficult confrontation of her life was about to begin. For several seconds, the boathouse was completely silent. The ocean crashed against the rocks outside. Wood creaked softly beneath the structure. Yet inside, no one moved. No one spoke. Ethan Bennett stood in the doorway, his expensive suit immaculate, his expression unreadable. The billionaire CEO, who had spent years controlling every situation, had finally arrived at the one moment he could not control. Sophia looked at him differently now. Not as her husband. Not as the man she once loved. But as a stranger standing in the ruins of countless lies. Ethan's gaze settled on Ryan. You should have left this alone. Ryan remained calm. I tried. The answer was truthful. For years he had tried. Tried to protect Sophia. Tried to leave the past buried. Tried to convince himself that forgiveness was enough. But some truths demanded daylight. Ethan gave a humorless laugh. And now look where we are. Sophia stepped forward. No. Her voice was stronger than either man expected. You brought us here. Ethan's eyes shifted toward her. For the first time in years, she didn't look intimidated. She didn't look controlled. She looked free. And that unsettled him. Sophia's hands trembled, but her voice remained steady. How long did you know? Ethan didn't answer immediately. Because there was no good answer. Only ugly ones. Finally, he sighed. Before we got married. The confession hit harder than a scream. Sophia felt her heart shatter all over again. Before we got married. Not after. Not recently. Before, the entire marriage suddenly looked different. Every conversation, every decision, every moment, Ethan had convinced her to doubt herself. Ryan watched her expression change as the realization settled in. The manipulation had begun long before either of them understood it. Sophia stared at Ethan. "You knew Daniel killed Emma." "Yes." "You knew my father covered it up." "Yes." "And you knew I wasn't responsible." A pause. Then, "Yes." The boathouse fell silent again. The truth felt heavier than the ocean itself. Tears filled Sophia's eyes. Not because she was weak. Because betrayal hurt most when it came from someone trusted. Ethan shook his head. "You don't understand." Sophia laughed bitterly. "Then explain it." For the first time, Ethan's composure cracked. "I found out during an internal investigation involving Daniel." A flashback unfolded. Years earlier, Ethan uncovering hidden financial records, discovering evidence connected to the old accident, realizing Daniel Ashford was vulnerable, realizing powerful secrets could become powerful leverage. At first, he had intended to use the information only for business. But then he met Sophia, a beautiful woman carrying invisible guilt. A woman already broken in ways she didn't understand. A woman easier to influence because she doubted herself. Back in the present, Ethan's silence confirmed everything. Sophia looked physically ill. "You used me." Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it again. Because there was no defense, no explanation, no excuse. Ryan stepped forward. "There's more." Ethan's eyes narrowed. Ryan removed a folder from his bag. The folder Michael Reeves had risked his life to protect before disappearing. Inside were recovered witness statements, financial transfers, corporate records, evidence connecting Ethan and Daniel, evidence proving years of blackmail, fraud, and obstruction, evidence proving Ethan had helped conceal the truth. Not just about Emma, about multiple crimes. Ryan handed the folder to Sophia. Her hands shook as she opened it. Page after page. Lie after lie. Crime after crime. Every document pushed Ethan's empire closer to collapse. Outside, distant sirens suddenly echoed through the air. Ethan heard them too. His face paled. For the first time all day, fear appeared. Real fear. Ryan's phone vibrated. A message flashed across the screen. The evidence had been delivered. Federal investigators were moving in. The game was over. Ethan looked toward the doorway, toward escape, then toward Sophia. For a brief moment, he seemed almost human again, almost regretful. But some damage cannot be undone. Some betrayals cannot be repaired. Minutes later, law enforcement vehicles arrived at the estate. The investigation spread quickly. Daniel Ashford was arrested while attempting to board a private jet. Financial records exposed years of corruption. Richard Ashford's role in the cover-up became public. The empire of lies that had survived for 15 years collapsed in a matter of weeks. And for the first time since Emma's death, the truth stood uncovered. Months passed. The media eventually moved on. The trials concluded. The headlines faded. But healing took longer. Much longer. One bright spring morning, Sophia stood in front of a newly completed community center overlooking the ocean. Children ran through the courtyard. Families filled the gardens. Laughter echoed across the property. For the first time in years, Sophia had designed something entirely her own. No permission required. No approval needed. Only purpose. A bronze plaque stood near the entrance. Sophia traced the engraved name with her fingertips. Emma Hayes. The girl whose life had unknowingly connected so many others. The girl who deserved to be remembered for more than tragedy. Footsteps approached. Sophia smiled before turning around. Ryan. No longer her bodyguard. No longer standing several steps behind her. Just Ryan. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence felt comfortable now. Earned. Peaceful. Finally, Sophia looked at him. Do you ever wonder what Emma would think of all this? Ryan glanced toward the children playing nearby. A faint smile appeared. Every day. The answer carried sadness, but also warmth. Because for the first time, remembering Emma no longer meant only pain. It also meant hope. Sophia slipped her hand into his. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. Naturally. Like two people who had survived the same storm. The ocean shimmered beneath the afternoon sun. Ryan looked at her. Sophia looked back. So what happens now? She asked softly. Ryan smiled. The same genuine smile she had spent years waiting to see. For the first time, he squeezed her hand gently. We get to find out. Together, they turned toward the community center. Toward the future. Toward a life no longer controlled by secrets. And as the doors opened and children rushed inside, the past finally loosened its grip. Not forgotten. Never forgotten. But forgiven. At last. And for the first time in 15 years, all the pieces finally fit together.